I'll get into it later, but there's a lot to consider when talking about clam chowder. We all know, of course, I am famously from California, not a clam chowder state. Oh, okay. He like just learned how to jump on the counter. Wow. Okay, Leonard, are you into the clams? People are gonna be like, that's gross. And it's like, well, this is my house, so f off. This is my sweet son. You gonna eat the celery? Oh, just like mom. Oh my God. I'm sorry, this is so cute. Okay, well, anyway, I'm gonna continue here. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Home Movies. I'm Alison Roman, and you're in luck because it's clam chowder day. People have a lot of opinions depending on what state you are in, how you grew up, where you summered, which is a very, I feel like, East Coast term. I am not such a purist, but I will say that my clam chowder has some rules. Bacon, optional. Super optional. I happen to really like slab bacon in my clam chowder. I feel like it tastes good. That said, love clam chowder in a pescatarian manner. No flour. This is not a roux-based clam chowder. This is a milky, brothy, soupy, breezy, delicious, ethereal clam chowder. My clam chowder is never blended. I'm never gonna touch a blender to my chowder. I like to use a mixture of clams. I like to use little nut clams primarily, and if that's all you can find, I think that's the clam to use. But I think it's also nice to mix it up with smaller clams if you have them. What else? My clam chowder does have celery. I believe in celery in most soup, stews, braises, chowders. This is no exception. The wild card here, I'm gonna add corn to this clam chowder. And that may feel scary to some of you. Some of you might be saying, are you sure? Some of you might be saying, that sounds like two chowders combined. But if we are talking like late summer vibe, and that's clam chowder season, then I think a beautiful ear of corn, which is very in season during that time, it makes sense to me to combine them. Anyway, that's a really long way of saying that bacon, clams, and corn together in a soup are awesome, and that's what we're making today. First things first, we're gonna scrub and soak our clams. Clams, even when you get them from like a nice, beautiful fish market, they will be sandy. They just will be. No one's gonna scrub a clam like you'll scrub a clam for you, you know? I do think about 5 pounds of clams, this is gonna serve like 6 to 8 people, is about what you want. And you just kinda wanna like brush the stuff up on both sides. Basically what happens is because clams grow in the mud, in the soil, in the dirt, in the mud, in the ground, in the sea, in the bottom of the water, they burrow really deeply, and there's a lot of like very fine sandy soil in the grooves of their shells. Clams I like also because they're actually really accessible. Almost any supermarket has them, and it's pretty easy to tell whether they're fresh or not, because when they're not fresh, they start to open because they die inside, which, a bummer. You can see like how much sort of dirt and sediment has come off those clams. This isn't something that I necessarily want in the chowder. So that's why we do this. I'm just gonna let these clams sort of soak. So first things first, scrub, soak clams, and then move on, make like your whole soup base, your chowder base. And then at the end, you can just drop the clams, open them up, and eat it. Eat the chowder. Wait, sorry, did I already ask? Is anybody watching Presumed Innocent?
No.
It's the Jake Gyllenhaal show on Apple. Ruth Nega's in it. She's incredible. All the acting is very good.
Severance is a good Apple show.
You know, people loved it. I watched like 3 episodes. It's not for me. The dystopian, I didn't like it. I'd rather watch a show about a guy murdering a woman, I guess, because that's what Presumed Innocent is about. Anyway, okay, so our clams are soaking. They are preparing for chowder. Over here, we are going to make what is effectively like the base, the chowder soup, the recipe, where it all starts. What am I saying? We're not doing a full pork experience here. This is like bacon meant to flavor the chowder and also give the fat. So this is about 6 ounces or so Not unlike bolognese, which the way I just said bolognese was like so American, I want to melt into the floor. Oil plus water combined, well emulsified, is thick, luscious, creamy. So by adding enough fat to this chowder, which otherwise is very lean, we are contributing to the body, the overall mouthfeel, the lusciousness, the luxury of chowder. This will unfortunately never be dairy-free, will never be vegetarian. So do with that what you will. But if you're a pescatarian, don't want the meat, please feel free to skip ahead. And you can definitely use butter or olive oil to saute your vegetables. But I like slab bacon because I like the way that the bacon doesn't disappear. And you get like kind of chewy bits of fatty meat. Don't be fussy about this. You know, these will shrink considerably when they cook. And this is gonna be on like a medium heat. You don't want a high heat for this, or even a medium high, because our goal is to render the fat slowly. We are coaxing it into submission. We are low and slowing this bacon so the fat just kind of melts into the pot as intended. What I will say about this bacon is if you feel like your bacon is especially lean, so if you're cooking your bacon, you're like, I'm not getting the fat and it's mostly just like crispy meat, delicious, great, but the goal here is to get fat. You can always add a splash of olive oil, a neutral oil, a knob or two of butter, but I almost never cook with bacon. That said, clam chowder is a very quiet dish. It's very austere. It's of the sea and of the cream and, you know, some alliums, but bacon really like makes itself known and earns its place here. Like I do miss it when it's gone. That said, again, you can make this and it would be delicious without the bacon. I just prefer it with. So our main vegetables that we are seasoning the chowder with are celery, leeks, and garlic. This is what's going to create the primary flavor in the broth, right? It's allium-y, it's oniony, it's leeky, it's celery-y. So I'll start with 4 cloves of garlic. You could chop your garlic, you could slice your garlic, it doesn't really matter to me. Garlic, I don't think is super traditional in a clam chowder, but we're adding a little bit in there because I like my clam chowder on like the pretty savory side, and because we're adding things like corn and potatoes and there's bacon, there's like a sweet smokiness going on that I want to make sure we are anchoring it firmly in savory territory. Anytime I'm cooking with heavy cream, which is also sort of sweet, I feel the need to overcompensate with things that remind you that what you're eating is savory. That was really eloquent, actually, what I just said. Anyway. 2 leeks. I'm gonna use the whole leek, including most of the green. I like that. I like the flavor of it. I like the texture of it. These leeks are very sandy, so I'm gonna rinse them. All right, I'm just gonna cover these with cold water, and all the dirt from the inside is gonna sink to the bottom, and I'll lift them out and cook them. A lot of soaking going on this episode. We're rinsing, we're soaking, the sediment is falling away. I love it. We've probably got at least 3 tablespoons of fat in there, which is great. This is like a nice therapeutic style recipe. I feel like it's just like a lot of chopping and like single steps, and then like everything kind of comes together, and it's very hands off other than like I don't know, I feel at peace. Slice down the center and then on the diagonal. Of all the recipes that I've made recently, I'm most excited to eat this one. Always hold on to the leaves. I like to sort of strew them about on top of the chowder. I think it like reminds you of the celery that's in the chowder. It's also fresh, it's vibrant. Our bacon is exactly where we want it to be. And because I'm keeping it in the pot with everything else as it cooks, it's gonna continue to give up fat. It's gonna continue to render and soften, so I'll keep it in there. Can you see how much sand is in the bottom of this bowl? Pretty cool. I'm gonna add the garlic with the bacon. Yum delish. I'm gonna add the leeks. All right, salt and pepper. Clam chowder wants a lot more black pepper than you thought possible. So don't be shy. You'll be peppering a lot. There'll be a lot of peppering. A lot of scrubbing, soaking, and peppering. All right, I'm now up at a medium-high heat. That's a 7 for my induction heads. Which, small hive, by the way. Small. there's not a whole lot of you. All right, so while that happens, I'm gonna prep the rest of the vegetables. Potatoes, I like to use a Yukon Gold because I like the creamy texture. I've also had great luck using just like a simple Idaho. These are tiny little potatoes. These are actually like a more white potato. So somewhere between a Yukon Gold and an Idaho in starch level, which is actually pretty perfect for what we need it for. And then we're cutting them into like inch-ish pieces. If you're like, I want like big hunks of potato, like soft potato, cut your potatoes larger. If you're like, I want like tiny, barely there, tender, falling apart potato, cut your potatoes smaller. I'm somewhere in between, so I like this size. Chowder is sort of, as you can tell, like kind of involved in terms of knife work. Like there's a lot of slicing and scrubbing and soaking and peppering. It's not hard, it just takes time. And we like that when we are cooking. So you see it's like shrunk down a lot. There's some color starting to happen on the bottom. It smells very good. I've reduced my heat to about a 6. I'm gonna add my potatoes now, just because I have them cut already, but you could basically add your celery, potatoes, and corn all at the same time. And after you add each vegetable, it is sort of like salt and pepper, salt and pepper. And after you add each vegetable, it will take a while for that pot to get hot again, so just sort of be patient with it. So our potatoes are cooking down with our celery, leeks, garlic, bacon. Leonard is very interested in this corn. Leonard cooks. And the corn is not something that needs to cook for a very long time. I would give like the potatoes and stuff a head start if you have the option. Someone once asked me how I keep my cats off the counter when I'm cooking. And I was like, I've never had that issue before. Like my other cat, Margot, who's still alive, she's simply not interested. This is the first time he has ever jumped on the counter and watched me cook, and my heart is actually melting. This is really sweet. I like it. Cool. So our potato has been in there for about 10 minutes and is fully tender. That's where we want it to be before we add any liquid. So we are gonna add 4 cups of heavy cream. I think when all is said and done, this will feed like 8 to 10 people. At least 6 to 8. At least 4 people. I'm gonna bring that to a simmer, season it with salt and pepper, lots of pepper. I'm gonna add a fresh bay leaf. If you don't like bay leaf or you don't believe in bay leaf, which there's a lot of you out there, you can use something like thyme, although you will get a different flavor. You can also skip it entirely, but I do believe in bay leaf, especially in something like this. Bay leaf infuses really well into highly fatty liquids, i.e. heavy cream. So I think if there is a time to use bay leaf, I think it's now. Let it simmer for like 15, 20, and then I'm gonna add the clams. Those will open, and then that's done. While that goes, not necessary to like extra credit make garlic bread, but you got the time, because this isn't gonna be ready for a minute, and you may as well do something useful, assuming you have nothing else going on. Just kidding. I'm gonna make like a green garlic butter for green garlic bread. This is also just like a nice butter to have on hand. It's good on fish, it's good on chicken, it's good in rice, it's good in beans. All right, so I'm gonna take a ½ pound of butter, which is 2 sticks. And this is from the fridge, so I am gonna just cut it into small pieces. If you've seen me make anchovy butter, then you know that this is how I like to soften my butter. All right, so our chowder is bubbling furiously. I'm gonna turn it down so it's bubbling slightly less furiously. The goal is to not boil everything. You want everything to like simmer beautifully and in harmony. For our garlic butter, I'll use a mixture of herbs, parsley, and chives. And I'm gonna finely chop this. And then some chives. I'll probably hold back a little bit of these chives for the chowder at the end. Because one of my other rules of chowder, if I'm making it at home, not restaurant chowder, is that I do like herbs at the end. Grate my garlic. You could do anywhere from 2 to 8 cloves of garlic in this. 8 would maybe be overkill, but some people are like, no, I love garlic. Okay. People are always like, I double the garlic in every recipe I make. I'm like, okay. Oh yeah, that butter's soft. Hell yeah. Okay. We are about to add our clams, which means we can put our garlic bread in the oven. I'm gonna go like 425 for that. It's a nice baguette. I think baguettes are perfect for garlic bread for their crusty exterior and like soft custardy interior. And all the holes that you can like put the butter in, It always feels right. I also just love the dramatique sort of effect. In case any butter comes out. Cool. Clam time. Time for clams. Okay, these are scrubbed, they're soaked, they're ready. They're saying, chowder me. These go in on the bottom. If you're doing a mix of clams, they are gonna take a little bit longer to open than the smaller clams. You may be able to tell at this point that I'm not the kind of person who is going to pluck the clams from the broth and then take the clam out and then like chop the clam and put it back in the pot. Like, I'm serving this all as is. They're already starting to open. Okay. Our garlic bread is very crunchy, crispy on the outside, tender, custardy interior. See, that's what you need to hear. I always finish my garlic bread with a little flaky salt. Also, I am that person who will salt and pepper their toast in the morning. Like buttered toast with salt and pepper, it's gonna change your life. Our clams are open for business. I'm gonna kill the heat. This is like a robust, beautiful pot. And then you do still wanna always taste. I found one clam. That is excellent. I'm gonna season it one more time with salt and pepper before it goes to the table. And then in my fantasy, you kind of put the pot of chowder on the table. There's garlic bread, there's hot sauce, there's saltines if you want them. There's herbs to sprinkle on top. This is like my platonic ideal of clam chowder. Leave the corn in, leave it out, do bacon, do butter, whatever. I feel like it's deeply customizable, but this is how I would like mine. And maybe you would like yours too. And then a nice little garlic bread moment. Kind of superfluous because the chowder is so robust with like potatoes and bacon, but it is tough to deny the appeal of dunking delicious garlicky buttery bread into that broth. Daniel loves it.
Roast chowder.
Really good. Amazing. Thanks for coming to Clam Chowder Night.